Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Gareth Emslie, presenting the topic, Harnessing Dynatrace Application Security with Microsoft Sentinel for Advanced Threat Hunting.
So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you all today in sunny Vilnius, if that's how you pronounce it. So my name is Gareth Emslie. I'm a hyperscaler strategist with Dynatrace, and I'm also interested in security. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how we can combine signals from both Dynatrace and other vendors which are connected to your Microsoft Sentinel workspaces. So this is my standard disclaimer. I don't claim to be an expert in any of the things we will talk about today. I'm just really interested in technology, security, and development, basically software development. So in 2017, The Economist published an article. The title was, "The World's Most Valuable Resource is No Longer Oil." Could you hazard a guess to what the actual resource is? Yeah. Yes, you would be right. So data is today's oil, right? And attackers know it. That it hasn't gone unnoticed by the attackers. According to the Identity Theft Resource Center, in 2021 there were around 1,860 breaches, right, which were reported. 2022 we had 1,800, so there was a bit of a dip. But in 2023 we saw it almost double. Right? This included around 350 million records, customer records, right? So data, which was stolen. And it was a 78% increase over the previous year. These are some scary numbers, right? And we really, as security professionals and IT professionals, we really have to protect against these kinds of situations. Of course, you'll be happy to know things haven't changed much over the years, right? Social engineering and the human element is the weakest link, right? So of these reported data thefts, social engineering played a part in 18% of them. 10% was ransomware, and both malware and zero-day attack vectors were exploited also a lot more, right, than previous years. So they grew. 74% of all the breaches included in the report had a human element, right? So this paints a really bleak picture, really, at the end of the day, for defenders. Our defenders are also challenged, right, by their environments, the complexity of the environments. They are now multi-cloud environments. They have various data states living in data centers all over the world, right, which have to be protected. There is a little bit of confusion sometimes about who protects what and who's responsible for what, right, in the stack when you talk cloud workloads. Also, volume of just data points has exploded, right? Alerts, the number of alerts you have to deal with has exploded. Reduced manpower, so a lot of layoffs over the last couple of years. The sheer cost, right, of monitoring these workloads, buying the tools that you need, to fill all the gaps is also exploding. Another area where there are challenges is, how do you correlate different events across these different platforms, right? This can be really challenging for teams. So today I'm talking about Microsoft Sentinel. So we'll focus a little bit on the ecosystem that they have. They look to drive all telemetry into Microsoft Sentinel from their various properties, as well as third-party vendors like AWS. You can connect to Sentinel as well. They have their own threat intelligence stack, as well as their own Defender, suite of tools for protecting customer workloads. And it's all based on Azure Active Directory, of course, or Entra ID. Sorry. How many of you actually use Azure in your environments? Okay. How many of you use Sentinel? Okay. Oh, a few. Okay, good. So there's a rich ecosystem, right, of both third-party and first-party integrations in Sentinel. So one of the challenges as a partner, right, with Sentinel, you have to work out how do we get our data, our customer data, into the Sentinel workspace or into the Log Analytics workspace, right? So there are two ways we can do this. One was codeless connector, which at the time is a recommended practice. You know, you give the definition of the connector to Microsoft, they run it for you, right, on behalf of the customer who's installed the connector. And the other is deploying some resources to the customer's Azure subscription, right, through a custom connector. So there are two methods. There are other extensibility points available to you if you're building such integrations, but these are the most important, right? We're looking for signals to do our threat hunting. As I mentioned, you can get third-party connectors, right, and third-party solutions for Sentinel. So there's a content hub where you can self-service install the various solutions that you might be looking for, right, like from both Microsoft and other vendors. So it's key, as we'll be talking a little bit about threat hunting, it's key that you have the right telemetry, the right insights, right, or data available to you when you're actually looking for threats. So just looking at first-party properties, right, within Microsoft, of course, we're getting excellent signals if you've deployed things like endpoint protection for collecting, you know, malware, phishing attempts, etc., data exfiltration insights. You also get insights around cloud apps which are being protected by the service, as well as some built-in capabilities where, you know, you can do behavior analytics to detect various anonymous behavior, right, within your environment. So there's a lot available to you, right, if you buy into the suite of products, right, the 365 Defender suite of products. Also on the Entra side of things, so on the identity side, if you're using Entra, you have various tools at your disposal, right, to understand, you know, if anybody's using anonymous IPs or anonymization services, you know, if they've logged in China and the next day they logged in somewhere a certain distance away, you know, you can report on all these events, right, within your identity stack. It's also possible to use built-in reports to look at, you know, risky users, risky sign-ins, and then also detection of risky events, right, which happens for you. So another key aspect, I think, in having you know, a security stack is the threat intelligence piece. So Microsoft obviously they have threat intelligence built into their solution, where you were able to drive various insights into or indicators into threat intelligence. A lot of that comes from, you know, traditional security vendors, right? And we're able to drive also things like taxi feeds, so data from taxi feeds into Sentinel as well, right, where we could actually use those for our analytics. So you probably know about the MITRE attack framework. Sentinel basically bases a lot of the functionality is based on this framework, where you can categorize and order, you know, queries and by tactics to understand kind of how well you are covered, right, from a security standpoint. So when we come to threat hunting, so the primary tool, or one of the primary tools, is essentially Custo, so KQL. It's a query language which really originates from Log Analytics. You're able to, you know, query super fast all the data in your which you've ingested into your workspace. Really complex queries. You can query across tables, and you can understand or explore the data that you've collected, you know, over a certain period. On the other hand, you know, Microsoft tried to make it easy for you. They have a lot of built-in queries available to you. They also have more powerful capabilities like notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, where you can actually do much more complex hunting and querying of your data. Another key aspect is that Sentinel includes both SOAR capabilities and also automation, right? So based on your queries, you can trigger alerts, you can trigger incidents, and you can also execute remediation tasks, right? Even in external systems like Dynatrace. So as I mentioned, you can define these complex rules. And you can also manage then, you know, the raised incidents. You can manage those centrally using Sentinel's SOAR capabilities. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so you can see my screen. So some of you may be familiar with the Azure portal already, and some of you have even deployed Sentinel, right? But at the end of the day, Sentinel is really a capability which is added onto Log Analytics Workspace. So when you come into the portal, you can just search for, you know, Microsoft Sentinel, click Create New Workspace. You know, you would create a resource group. And the name, whatever. Great. Okay. Once the Log Analytics Workspace is created, you can then select it, you know, to add the Microsoft Sentinel capabilities. So in the meantime, I have already created another workspace. Okay. So once it's deployed, basically, this is where you would land. There's an overview screen, you know, which gives you really an overview of your incidents, your alerts, all the kind of insights that you may need, right, as an operations team. So something that will be very useful, obviously, is knowing that you can install, I mentioned earlier, Content Hub. So this is where you can actually, it's like a marketplace where you can actually install various solutions, right? If I spell it correctly. And so there's a large list of both first-party and third-party solutions available to you, right, to integrate with your various security tools and platforms. Okay. There's also something called the Sentinel Training Lab, which I would recommend that if you're trying it out, you can just add it to the to your Sentinel workspace, and you'll work through basically a handbook which teaches you, you know, how to use Sentinel. Okay. So a little bit about Dynatrace. As really we're looking here, or I'm trying to show value of combining the two solutions so that you get more insights into your environments. So Dynatrace is really an observability platform originally, which a few years ago added security AppSec capabilities, right? So, you know, on the observability side, really users can find out whether their users are having a good experience with their applications, you know, whether they have an outage, whether there may be an outage in the future, etc. Right? And then on the security side, it's all about, you know, do we have vulnerable applications within the environment? You know, so do they have vulnerable dependencies? Are there attacks ongoing in the environment? And then insights into what those different events, you know, about those different events. And of course, the platform is you know, complex. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it supports many technologies. So I can show you a little bit about, so on the Dynatrace So if we look at Dynatrace, so I don't know how many of you have actually used Dynatrace before. Okay, oh great, okay. So we're going to ignore all this other craft, but really focus on application security. So, you know, this is a module, an add-on module, which you can have activated in your tenant. It really does all the things I just described, you know, so it highlights both third-party and code-level vulnerabilities in your environment, and it gives you a way to manage those essentially, understand, you know, which are the, you know, which technologies or runtimes are the worst affected, and over time helps you to improve, you know, really your stature within your environment. So you can drill into all sorts of information based on, you know, the process which is running on a specific host in a specific data center. It tells you a little bit about the vulnerabilities, the scoring, etc. So if we drill in, that's the overview. So if we drill in here, we'll see, you know, in this demo environment, there's 452 vulnerabilities detected. You get what we consider to be, so our AI, our Davis AI, basically calculates a score based on the severity of the vulnerability, based on various other telemetry that we gather, like, you know, do we have access to public internet from that machine? Do we have access to data? And basically comes up with a criticality score. You know, from Dynatrace itself, you can actually see all the details about, you know, the vulnerability, deep links to get more information. You know, you can mute the issue if it's a false positive. You can see all the related entities, right, which are affected. Okay. Let's just move on. So the same with code level. So these are, you know, within your code. So we look at third-party code level, and then finally attacks. So so attacks can be useful. I mean, where your perimeter defenses haven't caught something, for example. So we look at, you know, various types of attacks like SQL injection, command injection, you know, those types of things, and then you know, raise that to our operations teams where they're able to then trigger remediation. You get obviously a little bit of insights as well into the type of the attack. For example, here we can see a SQL injection attack. We have the SQL statement as well, which will give you more information, right? Okay. So basically, we've seen the value or the benefits of the two platforms. You know, how can we combine signals from both platforms really to improve your security stature, right? So on the Dynatrace side, we have things like audit logs, which can be sent to Sentinel. We have security problems, we have attacks, so security problems being vulnerabilities detected in third-party and your own code. We also have things like infra and APM monitoring insights, right? So high CPU, high memory, things that may indicate, I don't know, Bitcoin miner, for example. Then, so those are all kind of outbound insights to potentially to Sentinel, right? On the Sentinel side, we have very powerful analytics engine. We have, you know, advanced hunting alerts. We have Jupyter notebooks. We have a lot of capabilities, right, built into Sentinel, which we can leverage to push information back into Dynatrace as well, right, for operations teams to be prepared. Okay, so I mentioned we saw this earlier. So Davis identifies these security problems within your environment. So we partner with various vendors in the industry, and with like Snyk, for example, as well as leveraging our own rules engines and AI, you know, to understand whether an issue is apparent in our environment. So what we did is we obviously built a connector, so you can bring this data into Sentinel. I'll show you a little bit later how that works and how you can use that in your threat hunting. I mentioned we also have attacks, so we did the same here. We can also bring all our attack data from Dynatrace into Sentinel, right, where you can query it across with other vendor data, right, that you have in your environment. As I mentioned, there are other areas as well, like audit logs and typical APM infrastructure insights, right? So both of those data points you can also bring into Sentinel, right, and use in your queries. We also include a number of rule templates, right? So these, I'll show these to you in a little bit. So these are out of the box when you install in Sentinel, and they will trigger things like alerts on certain conditions based on telemetry and insights which are ingested into Sentinel from Dynatrace, and they will basically help you to manage a number of alerts that you need to weed through, right? One thing is important, of course. So when we built the templates, we took into account, severity, whether it should be an incident, whether it should be just an alert, something which is useful potentially right later when you're threat hunting. So from both Dynatrace and Sentinel, you have automation capabilities. So this is extremely helpful for triggering automatic remediation, for example. So in Dynatrace, you can create workflows, so based on automation engine. Also, you can trigger these based on events, on schedules, and various triggers. And also, you can build your own custom activities for your workflows. And the same, right? So if any of you have used Sentinel, you'll know that playbooks based on logic apps under the hood. Right, so we have the playbooks capability in Sentinel. So here we can trigger automation when a new incident is created, for example. So you can enrich an incident with data from an external system. You could do the same or trigger some logic when an alert is triggered as well. Which can be really useful, right, to cut down manual steps which you have to execute in your operation center. Another area which is a possibility is actually pushing various insights back into Dynatrace using playbooks. So here we can see additional insights which were gathered from Defender showing up in Dynatrace, right, in the same view as the attack. When the attack was occurring, we can see there were some login attempts, for example. Okay. So, as I mentioned, when you have your Sentinel workspace created, okay. Anyway, I'll just walk you through it. So from the Content Hub, you can install the Dynatrace solution, right? So currently it's installed into this workspace, but you would just click install. That would bring along with it various artifacts. If the internet is working. So various content. So we have, we include connectors, we include the analytics rules, as well as playbook templates. Right? So these are available to you once you install the solution, and then you're able to configure them, within connectors, for example. you can go to Dynatrace attacks and go and open the connector page. You provide your Dynatrace tenant URL, an access key, and you're away, right? Your data starts to flow into Sentinel. Okay. The same later, where you once you have data in your workspace, you can go to analytics, and in analytics you will have the rule templates available to you. All the rule templates which are available in the solution, which will basically help you, raise alerts and incidents within Sentinel based on the insights which you're pulling in through the connectors. And the same on the automation, right? So one thing which is quite cool is that you can use playbooks. So we have playbook templates which can be used, for example, to add additional insights, right, or enrich an incident which is being tracked by Sentinel with additional data from an external system. Okay. Okay. So essentially what we're doing is we're allowing our customers really to converge data from the development side with the security side, right, into a single workspace. So here we can see the original diagram that we saw before. We have the traditional security vendor signals being ingested into threat intelligence. We have things like IPs, domains, file hashes, etc. We add Dynatrace, right, through the connectors. So we have a connector which is bringing data from Dynatrace, so attacks, security vulnerabilities, observability issues, bringing those into Sentinel, and then we're again enriching Dynatrace problems with insights from Sentinel. So it's essentially a circular flow of data between the two platforms, right? And this gives you really kind of unparalleled insights into what's going on in your environment. One of the things, yes. Okay, something I wanted to show you. Let me just quickly flip over before we close out. Okay. So something I haven't shown you is the data. So once you have actually connected the data connectors to your Dynatrace tenant, you can come into, can you see this? Sorry. Yeah. So you can come into your your logs, right? And you will see a number of different tables which have been added to your log analytics workspace. So things like attacks. So for example, attacks. So you will see here essentially all the data points which are collected from Dynatrace and are available to you for querying, right, within Custo, and also available to you for creating new alerts, for example, in the hunting area. We can do things like, where is it? For instance, okay, well, this is just a basic one, but we can create a new Sentinel alert rule here based on the query. You can select your MITRE tactics and techniques. You can do entity mapping, so you can map to an account or IP address. You can also add custom details. You can customize the alert. You can run the query on a specific schedule, looking back at a certain amount of data. And based on the results, you can create incidents, right? So this is once you've actually established what your query that you're using. And you can also automate responses, right? So you can actually even remediate things automatically. Okay. So this is all available from this screen. If I go back to so I mentioned also in the slides the hunting capabilities, right? So out of the box, there are a ton of hunting queries available to you, right? And these tie back, they all tie back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, right? Where you can see exactly what your coverage is across your environment, right? You can also simulate, you know, if you enabled all your analytics rule templates, what would that look like for you, right? So we can do that, and we'll see that a number of different techniques, you know, were mitigated. Another important point I would say, okay, wait, let me show you the automation. So one thing we do is we see in that last diagram that I showed you in the slide, we use a playbook basically to add our own threat indicators to threat intelligence. So one of the things that we add is the IP address of the detected attack, right? So here, very simply, edit. So this is a playbook which comes as part of the solution, which basically adds the attacker's IP, right, as I mentioned, as a threat indicator, and you can use those in further, you know, queries going forward, right? Yeah. So I think this is all I have right now. Do you have any questions?
The top one was, does Dynatrace also perform remediation?
Sorry? I didn't get
does Dynatrace perform remediation?
Yeah, you can. So if we're detecting attack, you could kill a process, basically. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So also you have workflows. So automation engine, you can actually run your own. You can create your own workflows to execute your own logic, right? Which would, I don't know, turn off machines, add IPs to firewalls, you know, those kinds of things.
On this question, I have another question, like in case of vulnerabilities.
Yep.
Can it also perform remediation?
No, not that I'm aware of. Not. It's more about highlighting, you know, the fact that there are vulnerabilities. The interesting thing here is I didn't have it in time for the presentation, but basically you can actually, so based on vulnerability information, you can actually push the details of those resources which are vulnerable into Sentinel, and then use that for further threat hunting as well, right? So host names, you know, servers in the cloud.
Okay, our next question is somewhat interestingly from Steve Jobs. Can you write your own detection rules in Sentinel, and if so, in what language? Is it plain text or something like YAML?
Not YAML, no. So it's custo, basically, is what you would write the query in. And then, you know, if you publish it through, I don't know if everybody's seen it, but, you know, Microsoft has a repo on GitHub where you can basically help. You can add new solutions, your own solutions. This is where you would find Dynatraces, for example, the source code. And many other vendors are here, right? And you would see basically how those are put together. So in here it's kind of YAML, but the query that's executed is custo.
Okay, and then we have a question of, can Sentinel cover a company using AWS, macOS, Open LDAP, and minimal Microsoft endpoints without AD and Azure Cloud?
You'll need a consultant for that one.
Yeah, I would think so.
So it's positioned as, you know, multi-cloud. You know, I cannot be certain that it covers all the scenarios that you're wishing to cover, right? But it's certainly worth investigating.
And then the last question would be, should cyber threat intelligence teams create hunting plans, or should threat hunters create them themselves?
I will put that one to the side because I don't have any strong opinions. I think from my perspective, I would say both, you know, should be empowered to do so. I don't see why not. You know, everything has to be triaged at the end of the day, and we need to understand exactly, you know, what effect a particular threat has on, you know, the environment. But I don't have any strong opinions.